Broadcasting live from the Business RadioX studio, it's time for the Gnfcc 400 Insider. Connect, build, and grow with the Greater North Fulton Chamber of Commerce.
Hello and welcome to the Gnfcc 400 Insider, the monthly radio show and podcast presented by the Greater North Fulton Chamber. I'm Kali Boatright, President and CEO of the Chamber, and in today's episode, we'll be talking transit in the North Fulton region and hosting our friends from Marta. We have in the studio with us Freda Hardage and Jennifer Larosa. Welcome, ladies.
Thank you for having us.
We're excited to have you and talk about all things Marta. Before we jump into all the things that are happening here in North Fulton and beyond, how about telling us a little bit about yourselves and the role that you each play with Marta? Freda, as a former chairperson of mine, I'm going to ask you to go first.
Well, thank you. I have been on the Marta board. This is my 12th year. And when I was originally asked, I said I would do it for a year.
Oh, so, how's that working for you?
Well, it worked well. I've come to really enjoy what I do as a board member representing North Fulton. I served as chair when it was Fulton County's term a few years ago. So I feel it's important to try to give back as much as we can. And this is one of my ways I feel like I'm giving back to North Fulton.
And you've been an excellent advocate for North Fulton. So I appreciate your 1 year to 12 year reign, if you will. Jennifer, how about you?
So I've been working in-house at Marta almost 2 years now. I've been down at the Capitol 11 years, and most of that time was either representing Marta as a contract lobbyist, working for local jurisdictions of Fulton County and some other cities and CIDs being some of those as well. But it's really good to be focused on all things government affairs from state, local, and federal levels on transit here in the region, as it's always been a passion of mine, and really just, again, putting all efforts into that.
That's excellent. They're lucky to have you focusing all your time and attention on Marta. So ladies, let's jump right into the exciting news that was unveiled at the 2025 State of Marta event just last month. Marta has recently unveiled a new fleet of train cars that are absolutely stunning. Can you tell us about how the trains came to fruition, maybe what the timeline looks like, and what riders can anticipate?
It's amazing to see that train when it rolled down the tracks. For those of us that, when we started, and like I said, I've been here long enough that when we started talking about the rail cars and how they needed to be replaced, and just so you know, some of those rail cars that we're riding in right now are original rail cars.
Oh, wow.
Original.
Yeah.
They haven't been, there were some added and a few replaced over the years,
Sure.
But some of the originals are still on the road ready to be replaced. And if you ride them, they pretty much need to. They're pretty rickety at this time. But anyway, so we're very excited. The new rail cars, they're called the CQ 400s, but they're basically, if you can stand at the front of the car, if you get on the first car and you look, you can see all the way to the end. There's no gaps between them. It's
wow.
a visualization that is phenomenal. And I believe, am I right, Jennifer? We're the first in the North America to have these?
Mm-hmm.
So you could only see them if you're somewhere in Europe right now. So we're very excited about that, and to be able to offer all the additional things, more wheelchair accessibility, more bikes, being able to get your luggage if you're going to the airport. It now fits
Huge.
under the seats.
Oh, that's great.
Yeah, it's a lot of chargers. There's all kinds of fun stuff that people have been asking for. We asked the public, we got the public involved, and they helped us design these cars, and they're just magnificent.
That's amazing. Yeah. As somebody whose luggage has rolled around and tried to fit it between my legs and on the way to the airport, that's a huge bonus. Tell me more, Jennifer.
I'll just add that it's really nice because we do work with a lot of school systems, from grammar school all the way to higher education, that use this system on a daily basis. And this particular, the open gangway, as they say, that she was talking about, is going to be so much better for safety. We'll be able to have one MPD officer on one train that can see the entire length of the train at any given point. So that those safety mechanisms on top of all the bells and whistles that you're going to have is really something that we're very happy to see.
I'm sure your passengers are going to be very happy about it. I know that I'm excited that hopefully in the near future, as I get to the airport, I don't have to do that, and I can charge my phone on the way. So it's a bonus. Timeline wise, when can we expect to start seeing these trains in a one-off or a wholesale way? Jennifer, do you know?
Yeah, so I just asked this question the other day, so it's so
fresh in
so
your
good,
mind.
Right? Just towards the end of the year, we'll start seeing them come online, and then as time goes through each month or quarter after that, we'll see more and more come online. They're still being built, if you will.
And a staggered implementation would make sense, right? I can't imagine just all of them showing up one day and hoping that it all works. That's a big change. How many trains are there? Are you talking about 20 new trains or?
When it's all said and done and the whole fleet is here,
Yes.
224.
Oh my gosh.
Rail cars, yeah.
Rail cars.
224 rail cars. We'll see there.
But that will be over, I think, 5 years. It's 4 or 5 years. That
Sure,
it'll take
of
for
implementation.
them to get all here and made at the same time. And that's a great story, which I know that's not in the question.
No, but I would love. So
Stadler, who's
Yes.
out of Europe, is now headquartered in Utah. And so all of these trains are being made in the United States.
Oh, I was just going to ask you that.
Yes, absolutely. Everything except the shell itself is made over in Europe and sent over. And then everything else that's done to that train is done in
here.
Utah and then shipped here.
That's wild. I'm excited because we'll be the first, right? Nothing like being the folks everybody is taking advantage of watching and first to the trough here. Very excited. And I know that your GM and CEO, Kali Greenwood, also announced a $1 billion investment to enhance the rail stations because nothing like getting a beautiful new train makes you want to spruce up your rail stations. What can the residents of North Fulton expect for their local stations? And obviously, North Springs being the most furthest north as far as station.
It's also the most used in this region.
I was just going to ask you, what is the busiest North Springs up here? Because it's at the end as you go north, right? Yes. And so what will these changes bring to us with all the sprucing up that's going to be going on for enhancements at the rail stations?
We're going to get all kinds of good stuff. Better lighting, right?
Yes.
And just looking at the flooring, some of them are getting new tiles and new flooring, whatever. Each one is identified as to exactly what it needs.
Got it.
That brings it up. If you've been to the airport and you saw
Yes.
that renovation down
I did.
there,
It's great.
Then it'll look similar at your station depending on what your station needs.
Yeah. And I would think that every station's a little bit different, right?
Correct. We do have some stations that are going to need a little bit more of an overhaul. They've been around a little bit longer.
Sure.
Luckily, North Fulton is some of our newer stations, but definitely cleaning, safety, so lighting, and then ADA compliance. Some of our railings and parking lots, a lot of that needs to be updated to regulations. So those are our primary objectives, but each station will be certain other pieces that we have to add.
That makes all the sense in the world.
And they've been doing elevators and escalators too, just so you know. So I think ours have been done up here already, if I'm not, but they are all being redone, re-greased, re-oiled, and all the stuff that they have to do to make those efficient.
Yeah, because you've got a little bit of time on them now. So like all of us, it's always nice to get a little spruce up.
That's right.
That's awesome. You know, the fact that I know we're talking North Fulton, but even this entire region is expecting huge growth. So if you're talking about adding 2 million people to the region in the next 25 years, we're talking about a lot of, we're going to need more trains, I'm thinking. But why are these investments are being made now? I'm assuming obviously in anticipation so that we're ready, but it's helping not just our citizens move around, but also businesses. So maybe talk a little bit about what you plan to see as we grow in the future here.
I think part of it is that as we grow, and we clearly are, there's no turning back.
That's right.
Look at 400 every morning now. It's back. And
It
I'm
is
like,
back,
oh my
indeed.
gosh.
Indeed.
We do everything around trying to be safe, clean. She talked about that, reliable and sustainable.
Right.
So a lot of what we do, we teach our own staff in-house to take care of the maintenance so that it can be done quickly and on time and not have to wait for somebody to come in to fix things, which is important for us. But
Brilliant.
One thing I learned in learning all about the different opportunities that exist for Fulton is that for every dollar that we spend in transit, we get $5 back in economic development.
That would not surprise me, just based on the fact that if you look where economic development businesses are locating, there's that halo effect around those stations.
We can use Sandy Springs as a good example.
Great example.
Because where the train comes in at Perimeter and Sandy Springs, look what State Farm and Mercedes and other different big corporate clients came in and wanted to be right on that line.
Yeah, that with a lot of the economic interest, which is one of the main reasons why, as we look at this, that the Chambers is endorsing Marta coming up 400. This is such a big opportunity, certainly to move people around. Freda, your comment about it's back. Traffic is definitely back. That is absolutely true. And it's in both directions because people have relocated even during, I hate to even mention COVID anymore, but people relocated in town, out of town, or inside the perimeter, outside the perimeter didn't matter. And so now you're pretty much either way, you're going to be in some form or fashion of traffic. It's certainly important. And if that's what it's like now, throw 2 million additional people in that mix, that's going to be real interesting.
And I think it was interesting that you mentioned COVID. We look at a lot of numbers based on that number then compared to now, but you're hearing, especially in the business community, how many groups are forcing their people to go back full time, if not more, like much less remote commuting. And so with that, we're seeing an uptick in traffic year after year. And we need to be able to keep up with that, especially when business come to Atlanta, because we have that capability of having public transportation. And so people are still wanting that no car life.
Yes.
And we need to expand and move with that. We need to be flexible with it too, and what that looks like.
No, I agree. I think that you're seeing more and more of that as a desire. And I don't think it's just the millennial or Gen Z. I think it's even folks like me, the idea that I can do work on the way to work as opposed to having to drive. And so that makes a huge difference. Jennifer, you're down obviously at the General Assembly right now, which I appreciate very much the opportunity to have you pull out for a couple of minutes to come and join us for this. But as we are in session, can you share with us anything that's going on? I know there's a lot going on, but as it relates to Marta in transit, talk a little bit about what the opportunity is at the General Assembly this year.
It's a great transition from the previous topic, considering you even saw the state put in money into public transportation with the Transit Trust Fund a few years ago. So we're still seeing statewide dollars for transit entities to grow and service all the constituents of Georgia. And so we still see that, and we've had record-breaking years year over year since that fund started. So we're very happy about that. But this year in particular, we have two major efforts we are seeking. And one is talking about the flexibility of what transit looks like. We have our first bus rapid transit route opening up towards the end of the year, beginning of next year. And that's our Summerhill route downtown. And it's going to serve Peoplestown, Summerhill, Beltline, and downtown Atlanta. And that's going to be a great opportunity, not only for the people of that area who certainly wanted to be close to the heart of the city and get around easily, but all of the travelers who are coming in for all the different things, such as World Cup, Super Bowls,
We've got
concerts.
a few sporting events happening in the near future, and Beyonce come in the summer. We got a few things happening.
It's a big deal.
We're a big deal, but people do need to get around to those things.
And not only get around down there, but up here. So these are folks that probably won't speak our languages, won't be renting vehicles, and need to use public transportation. Yes. And things like World Cup, you're going to have such expansion out into even North Fulton in those 100%. Areas. So we want to be able to move those people around. But going back to the BRT route, we're seeking some device enforcement. That's going to be a camera on the front of the buses, which are going to be electric buses. And BRT buses are a bit different. They're not just a regular bus. That's a higher platform. The stations are higher. And it's going to be off-level payment systems, level boarding. So it's a much quicker, almost rail on wheels. And the flexibility of being able to move differently, but also have EMS services use that in case people need to get down to the heart of the city for anything going on. And so we are seeking some legislation for some enforcement around that. And then we have had tort reform's a big conversation in the business community, and we are becoming a part of that conversation as we are, Marta, the only transit entity in the state that does not have any limited liability at the moment. So we are asking for some fair response to that, and any amount of relief that we can get in those measures to make sure the tax dollars that we collect go to service and expansion and safety rather than cases and such.
Legal cases. Absolutely. It's interesting you mentioned BRT and the difference between a normal, air quote, right, bus and a bus rapid transit bus. We were with the GM, with Kali Greenwood, who in Indianapolis not even a year ago last fall, and looked at their BRT buses and even had the opportunity to drive over and see how they charge so that everybody, and these are business leaders, but many of whom are in engineering, and they're all hopping off the bus and trying to check it out. And it was very fun to see the nuances of how they differentiate. And I think a lot of people, when they hear bus, sadly think of like Old Yeller, right? The big yellow bus that took us all to school. And that's your vision of, for a lot of people, a bus. That is not what these are, right? It is a very different experience. And I love your analogy of a bus. It's like being on rails. It's to move people around.
Have you ridden the plane train?
Yes, of course.
That's bus rapid transit.
It is bus rapid transit. You're 100% accurate.
That's the closest I can think of for people in this area. But ours wouldn't necessarily look exactly the same.
There'll be chairs.
It functions the way. You know how you walk right on, walk right off, and that's what it.
It's easy peasy, and everybody's able to use it, which is the other piece of that, to have it accessible to all. So I think that's incredibly important too. And I love your focus on safety. I think obviously this has been a constant. I don't think that's not something new, but it is something that we can all appreciate in the time that we live in. So I certainly appreciate that as well. So I think that's a nuance that I've always noticed for Marta and the organization that I appreciate. Certainly even when I had young kids, taking them down to ball games and things, I'd never worried about it, which was great.
I'll just add one talking point in case anyone wants to bring it up to their elected official. Part of the reason we're seeking camera enforcement for the BRT lanes is because this particular area, we don't need to pull the resources of MPD or APD to help enforce these lanes. We want to be able to do it on a more automated system for the exact reason you just mentioned, safety.
Right. Yeah, and it only makes sense that folks should know better, right? Hey, not supposed to be in this lane. That's why they're there. So that makes sense. So that is something definitely to bring up with our legislative group. All right.
Can I add one thing?
Oh, please do.
No, she's the legislative person, but let's talk about local legislation. Just one second.
Please.
I know everybody's focused down at the Capitol right now, but we're fortunate to have 6 cities right here.
Absolutely.
And of them on the MARTA line, so to speak, we have 3 that really function very much: Sandy Springs, Roswell, and Alpharetta.
Yes.
And so those cities, it's a great opportunity as we move forward, more so for Roswell and Alpharetta because they're not quite as built out along the line as the other cities, to be able to look at their economic development and what this means and how the legislators, the elected officials in those communities get to help design this.
Which I love.
Yeah, there's input from all the different cities very much involved in how this will look as it goes forward.
And if I may, I'm highly engaged with the Technical College System of Georgia and the opportunity to have a stop on or near Gwinnett Tech, as we also have money in the budget to hopefully get a second campus up here. The stars may align, and that's always a great thing, right? So I think as you look at these pieces and how they work together for economic impact in our region is why the chamber is so involved in really pushing this initiative as well. So this is a big area for us from a legislative agenda standpoint. So I appreciate
Jennifer up in this region when she's not really busy down at the Capitol, but she's up in here a lot in the rest of the year.
Former constituent for years and years used the bus system to get to North Springs and then took it down to the Capitol and Georgia State for years.
Why wouldn't you? Parking down there is miserable. So it makes all the sense. Absolutely. Speaking of North Fulton in particular, there's a lot of planning going on in the way of 400. Freda, you alluded to that. We were talking about bringing the express lanes and transit up 400 and timing. It's not like this is going to happen tomorrow. I understand that. We've been talking about this for a very long time. Certainly, I'm sure the whole 12 years, Freda, that you've been on the board. Can you update us just on Marta's plans for North Fulton's 400 corridor?
So we are working in coordination with GDOT. They have their plans moving forward, and we are much aligned and in many conversations on the details of what each of the stations look like. We did not get the mega grant again that we applied for last fall. There was a lot of projects that they just didn't fall in the transit bucket. So you could tell that maybe wasn't a priority this year for the federal government and for those applications. And looking at administration changes, we certainly are paying attention to that and looking at different funding options as we move forward. However, we are very thankful that GDOT has been such an amazing partner. They've written in some efforts for us into their contracts with their vendors, and we're going to use the North Spring Station and Windward Parkway Park and Ride and that current infrastructure for some stops to connect to the system. And then we're still focusing on some preliminary planning for Holcomb Bridge, North Point Mall, and Old Milton Parkway to use to create BRT stations. And then again, to Freda's point on those cities, those exact cities she just mentioned, on what that looks like for economic development in those areas, we're supportive of any of those efforts, but also trying to make sure that our designs make sense to those efforts too. So we are moving forward, and we are very probably positive about what it's going to look like. And we'll have some more details as the conversations with GDOT continue.
And your partnership with GDOT is one of the things that's outstanding. As we travel around the country and talk to other organizations, it's such a unique thing to have y'all work together in the way that you do. Mm-hmm. So I don't want to undervalue that. I think that's incredibly important, and clearly has been part of the secret to success along the way as well. So I'm very grateful for that, and I'm ready for it. I'm ready for hopping on a bus outside of my office and being able to get down to North Springs into the airport. Did I mention? Yes, I'm very excited about that. Freda, you have been, as you mentioned, a 12-year, very long-standing board member for Marta. And of course, as I mentioned, a former chairman of my board at the Greater North Fulton Chamber and a long-time North Fulton resident. What is it about Marta that drives you to continue serving as our representative? You mentioned service, but clearly you've got to believe in Marta in a special way.
I do. And the way I believe today is not the way I believed when I started.
Oh, tell me more.
Is that originally I was like, I got to make sure we get our penny's worth, right?
Sure.
You know, we're here because we get taxed a penny, and we got to make sure that it's coming back to North Fulton. And now while I am very much aligned with the fact that we have to make our budgets and make sure our money's being used correctly, what I found in my time of being able to go out and meet with people that use Marta and that need Marta. Mm-hmm. And unfortunately, or fortunately, depending, when you're living in North Fulton, you sometimes maybe don't see the big picture because you're able to get in your car and go where you want to go. And sometimes it's more trouble to stop at the North Spring Station than just to drive, or we don't go where you need to go. And that happens too. So I understand all that. But now to be able to feel like that, hopefully helping for the future, and my children and my grandchildren will reap some of the rewards of it, that we're planning not only for today, the people that need it, and we need them because they're our workers and our employees that we need at our businesses, but then also for what we need for when those 2 million people all arrive right here in Atlanta, and we've got to figure out a way to get around. Mm-hmm. And I hope that I've made a little impact into that, because that's what I've learned that is most important.
I think you've made a big impact into that, 100%. And I think generationally, I think you're right. It's children, our children or grandchildren. Both my kids exclusively use Marta to get to and from the airport. To my son, we were just having a conversation this weekend, and his company's offices are moving over to the King and Prince building, and that is going to be the way that he's getting to and from work. And it's obviously a very, very good opportunity when you are on the correct line or have the access, which is why getting bus rapid transit up here is so important. So important.
And one day we hope it's more a regional approach than just what we have right now. But we move forward with what we can do to serve the areas that are currently in Marta.
That's right.
And from that, we'll see how that all irons out in years to come. But it's important right now that Fulton, for me, all of Fulton County, and then the rest of our constituents come together and do the best we can.
Well, it feels like we're winning if that 1 cent investment turns into 5 cents in economic development growth. Then it feels like you've got we're going in the right direction. So that's certainly a good thing. All right. You ready? Here's my last question. We're getting close on time. If there was one thing that you wished the residents of North Fulton, all these great people in our region, knew about Marta, what would it be?
I think that I would want you to know that Marta does serve a really strong purpose for our community. It's not about the criminals riding Marta, as I hear people say. I tell people the criminals are driving through your neighborhood in Escalades. So,
which fits a TV a lot better.
That's right. That's right. But the bottom line is that it really does serve a purpose for our community. Our businesses need it. we need those people that ride Marta for many different reasons, and that everyone should give it a try. If they haven't ridden it in a while, they may want to get back on it and try it again, because it is a great way to ride to the airport. I tell people that. I don't go any other way.
That's right. Or the Capitol.
Oh, yeah.
Right.
Because parking down there is
Absolutely.
miserable. So that's how I get down there too. And I know you do.
Parking at the airport's expensive these days too. So
True that.
ride Marta. I would say that I think that talking to everyone around the region and trying to figure out, to Freda's point, making sure people have the access to go where they need to go. A lot more people, students for education opportunities and soon to be graduates for work opportunities, want to work up here, but may not either be able to afford to or could live up here. So how many people want to be up here in this area that's contributing to economic development is a lot more than I think people realize.
Absolutely. And it's a part of the solution to accessible housing as well, in some ways, to be able to do that and have that access. So I like that idea as well. Ladies, you have been exciting because there's so much more I could talk about. Like, I've got a million more questions, and probably our listeners will too. Can you share how our listeners would be able to find out more about Marta and how to engage with you? Jennifer, I'm going to start with you. What's the best way for them to reach out if they want to know more?
I would say that the website has an amazing amount of information on all of our efforts, reports, contact information, especially public engagement. But on that note, our social media is booming these days. So go ahead and check all of those to see what's going on and stop by and see us. But contacting us personally, we're a very open door agency, and we're always here to answer questions no matter who it is.
And the website address is?
It's marta.com.
Easy. Absolutely easy. How about you, Freda? If folks want to reach out to their Fulton County representative on the Marta board, how would they do that?
They are more than welcome to reach out to me. And it, like she said, through the website. If you sent something to me, I would get it. They forward it to me. But I'll give you my email. It's freda.hardage@gmail.com. Just go for it.
Okay, that sounds
Have a good
great.
time.
There you go. And you're both so accessible and so gracious to be able to come and spend time with me today. I do appreciate it very much. And Jennifer, I know that it's a busy time. Please, thank you for everything that you do for us down at the Capitol, and certainly for Marta. We appreciate the time that you're spending doing that and what it brings back to North Fulton. So we appreciate both of you. Freda, please don't go anywhere. We like you. We're down for you staying on as long as we can keep you as the Fulton County representative. Thank you, Jennifer. You have our votes. So thank you both, ladies, for your opportunity to hear from you and for joining us today to discuss not just Marta's future, but really the future of the North Fulton region as it relates to moving people about. For more information about the programs, events, partnerships, and development opportunities available at the Greater North Fulton Chamber, you can always visit gnfcc.com. Until next time, I'm Kali Boatright, and this has been the Gnfcc 400 Insider on Business Radio X.